This is StoryBeat with Steve Cuden, a podcast for the creative mind. StoryBeat explores how masters of creativity develop and produce brilliant works that people everywhere love and admire. So join us as we discover how talented creators find success in the worlds of imagination and entertainment. Here now is your host, Steve Cuden.
Thanks for joining us on StoryBeat. We're coming to you from the Steel City, Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. StoryBeat episodes are widely available at storybeat.net, Apple Podcasts, YouTube, Spotify, iHeartRadio, and on numerous other podcast apps and platforms. Won't you please take a moment to subscribe to StoryBeat wherever you listen to podcasts? Well, my guest today, singer Josie Falbo, began singing in Italian and English when she was a mere 19 months old. Signed to Vee-Jay Records in 1963, Josie released a 45 RPM record with the songs Leave Me Alone and Easy to Love, which served as an early catalyst for her life in music and recording. As one of Chicago's most frequently heard studio singers for over 35 years, Josie has sung on countless radio and TV commercials, including McDonald's, Sara Lee, and Green Giant, among many others. Josie's 2010 Southport debut CD, Taylor Street, is filled with her love of many forms of music, especially R&B and jazz. Vocally, she delivers with a style and sound as smooth as drawn butter that amazes and impresses her audiences. The annual Festa Italiana on Taylor Street in Chicago, where Josie performs every year, always brings back a slice of life for the neighborhood of her youth. So for those reasons and many more, I'm truly delighted to welcome the brilliant singer Josie Falbo to StoryBeat today. Josie, welcome to the show.
Oh, thank you, Steve. I'm happy to be here.
Well, it's a great pleasure and a privilege to have you on the show. So I'm fascinated. You started singing at 19 months?
I did, according to my mother. She had the radio on, and she heard this little voice singing in tune with the song, and she looked around and it was me. And from then on, she and the rest of my family realized, oh, she can sing a little. And as we usually did in Italian families at every event, they would trot me out and coerce me to sing, which I did. And it was something that I realized early on I really loved and I wanted to do.
Was your immediate family from Italy, or did they just speak Italian?
Yes. No, they were all, I'm first generation. Yes, they all were born in Italy, my mom, my dad, and my sister, my older sister. And I was the only one born here, but many of my relatives were from Italy.
Interesting. And are you fluent in Italian?
I can get by easily enough. As the years go by and you don't use the language as much, things kind of get murky. But
sure.
Initially, what I spoke was kind of a hybrid, or at least now I do, kind of a hybrid of real Italian and Calabrian dialect, which serves me well enough, when I go to Italy.
I see. And
yeah.
Do you still sing Italian songs? I mean,
oh, yes, many, yes, I do.
Interesting. That's kind of when someone speaks two languages or more than two languages, they're always a cut above, I think, with their smarts, because they're able to think in two different languages. So the fact that you can sing songs and I assume interpret them so that you're singing them so people understand what you're singing, that's a skill set that I admire. I think that's really something wonderful to have. So who early on then were your inspirations and influences? Who did you start listening to as a kid?
Well, I think musically I was kind of precocious, if I do say so myself, because my mom had taken me to film versions of operas. They weren't able to purchase tickets to see live operas, so there were film versions, which she took me with her. Couldn't find a babysitter, so there I was watching Tosca and Turandot and various operas at the age of 5. And music, I can remember to this day, really affected me and inspired me and spoke to me. A lot of beautiful music, even though I didn't quite understand what was going on the screen, but enough of the emotion was in the music that it did affect me. And then with regard to later on, not too much later on, I heard my sister's recordings of various artists, among them that really, really knocked me out was, of course, Frank Sinatra.
Well,
And
the greatest.
oh yes, and Ella Fitzgerald, whom I gravitated to a lot. And she had some older records of people like Anita O'Day and some Stan Kenton's albums with June Christie
Hmm.
and Ray Charles. I mean, geez, you know what? I need a week to tell you all of them that really, affected me.
And this is when you were still a very young person. You were still what,
Yes.
3, 4, 5 years old? Yeah.
I was about 5, 6, 7, maybe. And when other kids were in love with Elvis Presley and Fabian and people of that, and Frankie Avalon, they were real popular. I'm not denigrating them or anything or that kind of music. It's just that it never really rang my bell, so to speak.
It didn't speak to you.
Right. It just didn't. It didn't seem. It didn't affect me.
So were you were into the jazz singers early then?
Very early on, yes. And I don't know how to explain that. All I can tell you is that it's the music that sank into my soul, and it was really inspiring for me. And it's also, oddly enough, it kind of displayed the kind of singing that I heard in my head
Mm-hmm.
and that I wanted to do. It was like validating what I heard in my head. You don't have to stick to the melody note for note. You can expand on that, embellish it, and put forth what you really feel, what you're hearing in your head. And that was quite appealing for me.
Yeah. So in other words, jazz, which has the ability to improvise or riff or
Right.
go off the melody into other things, or interpretation of the melody and not stay on note,
Right.
is something that you early on found more pleasing than just listening to pop singers.
Right, exactly, yeah.
So Ella, Sarah Vaughan, Ray Charles,
Sarah
that
Vaughan, yes, Sarah Vaughan, Mel Torme,
the Velvet Fog.
yeah, yeah, all these great, wonderful jazz singers, yes.
So did you then start with any kind of formal training as a young person?
I had it's kind of haphazard, my training. It was kind of like catch as you can here and there. In high school, the nuns recognized my talent, and also in grammar school, and they had me singing all over the place. But formal training came in high school when they gave me a scholarship for voice lessons during my high school years.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah, and that was about the most concentrated time as far as voice lessons were concerned, or any kind of training. And throughout the years, when I got to college, I had won a voice scholarship. And during that year that I was in college, I had also formal training. It was very good. And then a few years later, when I had the time, I got involved in doing radio and TV jingles, which kept me very, very busy.
Sure.
And so I couldn't attend any kind of class on a consistent basis, with regard to voice lessons. But for 1 year, I was somewhat consistent with a teacher in Chicago, Ron Combs. And
what was his name?
Ron Combs, and he was director
Combs.
of music at the University of Northeastern Illinois University in Chicago. So that's about it. That's about, through all the years, it's kind of like little bits here, little bits there, and that was about it.
And otherwise, you're more or less self-trained then.
I would say, yeah. I would say.
And you've never suffered from any problems with that? Obviously, you're able to do what you do for quite some time.
Yes, I've been fortunate. In the beginning of my career, I was belting out at the top of my lungs with cover bands, a lot of rock tunes, and I'm surprised that I never did have a problem, but I'm happy to say I never did. So somehow, whatever training I had kind of stuck with me and was the basis for my singing style, and I managed not to do any damage to my voice.
Well, you're lucky.
Yeah, I am. Very.
So did you just say that you worked with cover bands that did rock?
I did.
Mm-hmm. And what kind of rock? I mean, what were you covering?
Janis Joplin, Stevie.
Can you shred your voice like she could?
Oh, not anymore. No, but and I came close, but no one could do that. No, not. I mean, I tried, and it was a reasonable facsimile, but no, there was only one Janis Joplin.
So you have a belt then. You can actually wail.
I can, yeah.
Because
Yes.
most of what I've heard has been much more mellow. It's not big wailing stuff. It's more mellow, which is beautiful.
Thank you, thank you. Well,
But I don't think of it as rock and roll,
Well, if you listen to Taylor Street, and I gravitated more to the R&B and to that type
Right.
of wailing, like Aretha Franklin and those types of singers. If you listen to Taylor Street, there's quite a bit of that type of singing
Sure.
on that CD. And
Sure,
that's
sure.
the genre.
Well, I highly urge listeners to get a hold of Taylor Street and give that a listen for sure. So at what point in your young life when you were singing, and when did you first get paid to sing? At what age?
Yeah.
Were you
Must have been, I think I was 21.
Oh, so you weren't in high school when you were doing paid gigs?
No, I was in my 20s. I would say 21 or 22.
And then at what point did you think to yourself, was it then or was it before then, did you think to yourself, you know what, I'm actually pretty good at this and maybe I should think about doing this more than not?
Well, the thought that I'm really good never really entered into my mind. The main thought was, I love this. I want to do this. This is what I want to be.
Mm-hmm.
This is what I want to do. And that was the main thought in my head.
Have you always felt like music and singing were your calling?
Yes, always.
Always. It's
Yes.
something that in your heart and soul, it was something that you were meant to do.
Absolutely. I never had any doubt in my mind. That's what I wanted to do.
Never looked back, no second thoughts. It was always just forge ahead. This is what you're going to do.
Yep.
I hear that frequently from various guests that this is what they were meant to do. And usually when that's true, then people continue forward with it. I myself, for instance, I've spent many years trying to get my career going in the early days, and people would say, why do you keep doing this? And I would say, then what makes you think I have a choice?
There you go.
You just have to do it. It's what's in your heart and soul,
There you go. You just parroted my thoughts completely.
All right. So you're really mostly into R&B and blues, yes?
Probably it's a toss up, but probably jazz is my one true love. I don't know, God, it's hard to make a choice because I even love opera. I've sung opera and arias at various functions, and I even love that. It's hard to choose, but probably jazz because of the spontaneity. Well, although that's present also in R&B. Have I confused you?
Not at all. Not at all. No. I think jazz and R&B are sort of coming from the same river. They're not totally different in any way. And R&B really is the beginnings of rock and roll. So it's all connected in that way.
True.
So when you're thinking about what songs you're going to sing, and particularly songs that you have not sung before, what kind of songs do you go for? Do you go what flavor do you like to go for? I know we've got a genre, but what flavor?
Well, if I were to take a look at the songs that, let me see, how could I put this? I think I'm drawn to songs that are not linear melodies. The melodies are interesting. There might be quite a bit of leaps, and to me, that presents a challenge. But also, there has to be beauty in the melody.
Mm-hmm.
And the chord changes, all of those things are what appeal to me and draw me to that particular song. And lyrics, of course, are important. The message in the lyrics. Very, very important. And that type of song presents a challenge for me. And so it's also like I'm trying to improve my skills too by doing these songs and enjoying it at the same time.
So you're always looking to then challenge yourself in some way to grow.
Absolutely, yes.
And that way you don't get bored or complacent.
Yes, true, yes.
That's what I think that great artists all do, is they keep challenging him or herself.
Hmm.
There's no sitting back and resting on your laurels. You've got to keep pushing forward.
Absolutely. I want to grow. I want to hone my skills and my talents and keep improving. There's always room for improvement, always.
So are there then songs that you avoid, that you think, I don't really care for that type of song, or I've done that before? Are there songs that you now sort of take out of your canon?
Pretty much the songs that I have in my repertoire are songs that I enjoy doing, and I would continue to do. Um, the songs that don't appeal to me, I just don't do unless I'm forced to for an event. For instance, at some weddings, in the past, when I was singing with jobbing bands and stuff like that, bands that play, bar mitzvahs, weddings, and those types of events, corporate
I'd
parties.
never heard that term before. Jobbing bands?
Yeah, uh-huh.
Interesting.
Yeah, that's what we call them here. And sometimes I would be asked to sing a particular song or songs that I didn't really like. But it was the gig and you had to do it.
Sure.
And I did my best at them. I figured I'm not there for me, I'm there for them.
So
My job.
even when you were tasked to do a song that you weren't into or didn't really care for, even then you still gave it 100%.
Absolutely.
You didn't phone it
Yes.
in.
No, 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 no. There was a challenge involved in that too, trying to make it something other than what it was, and still, make people happy.
Did you find that at all with any of the commercial gigs where there'd be a piece of music they'd have you sing that was like, this is not great, but you actually kicked it up in some way?
Oh, you mean in jingles? Are you talking
Jingles, yeah,
about
jingles
jingles?
and
Yeah.
advertising.
um,
And I'm not asking you to name names, so I don't want you
I
to.
know I don't name any names, but yes, that did happen on occasion. That in itself, singing jingles was challenging in many ways, not only in the type of music that we do and having a unified sound and taking your style and your sound out of it completely so that you have a blend and also interpret the music the way the producer wanted you to interpret it.
Sure.
And again,
Well, that's,
the challenge was in making it what they wanted it to be.
they're not going to have hired you to sing what you wanted to sing. They're hiring you to
Exactly.
what they want you to sing.
Right. Yes, but that doesn't mean I have to like it. But
And by the way, there's a massive amount of show business that's that way. That people are hired to do things that they don't really want to do, but they do them for all sorts of reasons. They need the money, they need the health insurance, whatever it might be. And there's no dishonor in it whatsoever. It's a job.
And when you come down to it, I was working with wonderfully talented people. I learned so much from them, and it was a challenge to come up to their skill level because I didn't sight read in the beginning. And good thing I had a good enough ear to remember the melody once I heard it. And but that I took care of on my own. I learned how to sight read on my own. But working with these wonderful people and musicians, it's all good, Steve. It was all good. Whether the jingle was good or not.
Well, if you're working with professionals, that's what makes the difference.
Exactly. Yeah.
All right. So when you're thinking about you've got an upcoming gig,
Hmm.
do you select your songs? Do you program your performance with the audience in mind, or do you program it with your own taste and feeling in mind?
Um, yes, the second one. I do songs that I like to do.
Mm-hmm.
And well, if it's a gig that's primarily a jazz gig, then I will choose songs that fit comfortably in that genre and that a lot of the audience will be familiar with. If it's not, if it's more pop oriented, then I will also choose songs that I love that fit into that pop category and
Mm-hmm.
that people will be familiar with and enjoy. But I choose the songs, I make the lists, I make the sets, and and that's it. I kind of just run the whole thing.
And you know that they're going to come along with you, or you feel that they're going to come along with you.
Oh yeah, I do. I feel that. Yes.
I think that's right. Well, this next question that I have for you is sort of half answered already by what you just said. But,
Mhm.
when I listen to you sing, it's obvious that you love what you're doing.
Mhm.
You can hear the passion in your voice. And so, I'm just wondering, does the passion of singing, does that factor into your choices and the way you do things? You have to feel that passion?
Yes, I do. Yes, it has to be meaningful for me on some level. It has to touch me on some level. Yes.
Well, is there any way that, so for instance, if, as we've talked about, occasionally you have a song assigned to you that you may not feel as passionate about,
Right.
do you
Yes.
have any tricks or techniques to get you to feel inspired about it as you're doing it? Is it?
It's not a technique or anything I consciously try to implement. It's mostly just trying to get the most out of the lyrics and what people are expecting, to try to meet their expectations of that particular song. So it might not be as gut wrenching to me, or I hesitate to use that word, but you know what I mean. Where it's not, uh, I will try to imbue it with some sort of passion and try to find the meaning in those lyrics and do my best to
So
put
you're
that forth.
actively seeking to feel inspired about it
Uh-huh.
when you
Yeah.
may not. I think
Right.
I think that's important for the listeners to understand, that you're not always going to love everything that you do, and
Well,
that
yeah.
you still have to perform at a high level.
Yes,
You don't get to go
absolutely.
to sleep on it, that's for sure.
No,
No.
you can't phone it in, as you said earlier.
All right, so I'm curious about how you develop your singing talents. Aside from doing a lot of performing, what do you do to develop your voice? Is it
Okay.
vocal exercises, or what do you do?
Okay. I'm ashamed to admit this, and I don't want to give a bad example to anybody, but I'm woefully bad at practicing or vocalizing.
So
Um,
don't feel bad, because I can't tell you how many singers I've had on the show that say the exact same thing.
okay, well, then I don't feel so bad. I just don't want to give a bad example because I feel it's very, very important. And I notice when I am consistent and remember in vocalizing, for instance, if I have a gig coming up and, I want to get my vocal cords in shape, so to speak, it is easier and it does improve my technique. And so it's important to do, but I never seem to be consistent with that. And that's something I strive every day or at least weekly to try to improve.
Well, you have an obvious gift when you don't need to work at it and work at it and work at it. It's just there, and then you can take it and enhance it, but it doesn't go away. That's what it sounds like to me.
I think you're right.
I,
Yes.
I've I've heard this repeatedly from any number of singers, and
Oh, good.
it always amazes me, because I think, you've got to, it's like a muscle, you got to keep working it. But
Uh-huh.
I guess if you sing enough jobs, or you don't fall away from it for a long time, that it's still there, it doesn't go away.
Right.
It's like riding a bike.
Yes. Yeah, right. I think you've described it perfectly. Yes.
Well, sometimes I get lucky. uh, um, so all right, from when you started out, and I'm not talking about when you were a little girl, I'm talking about when you started out professionally in your early 20s. Do you do anything differently now than when you started out? What has changed for you, if anything?
Do. I implement my head voice more than I used to before.
Describe for the
Uh,
listeners that may not know what that means. Describe what you
okay.
mean.
Head voice is not your lower pop voice. Let's see, what's the other word they use for the bottom? Oh God, I can't think of it now. But the head voice is more like, oh, it's a lighter sound, right?
Okay.
Like, can you hear the difference
I
in the songs? Although by now I've mixed them enough where sometimes you can't even tell the difference. But yes, as far as technique is concerned, I implement my head voice in various songs more often than I used to. And I think that is helped me keep my voice stronger and healthy by using that. And in the beginning, that was something I never wanted to do because I thought if I used my head voice, I would sound operatic, in quotes, and I didn't want to sound operatic in a pop song. So I stretched my bottom half of the voice, and that took a lot of pushing and a lot of yelling. And that's why I say I'm surprised, that I have a voice left after all I did that for a long time.
Would you say the head voice is a little more ethereal?
I would, yes. But the thing is, the more you use it and the more you're able to blend it, in certain instances, I think the word was, you could tell my lack of voice lesson terminology because I can't think of anything. But,
well, I love the fact that you do what you do without, a technical facility. That's good.
I'm trying to find the technical word for it. I think it's called finta voice. It was kind of a mix. And I think at this point, I'm able to make the head voice sound like my chest voice. There you go. That's the word I was looking for.
Chest voice.
Yeah.
So you're not using your diaphragm as much. It's a little more in the upper range.
I am. It's just that I'm able to flip it, and there's not that much of a difference between them now. And it's easier on the vocal cords.
So when you were younger, there was a big difference, and now there's less of a difference.
Right. Yes.
Very interesting.
Yes.
All right. So when you're getting ready to do a live performance and you're in a live performance, what would you say are the biggest challenges for you going into a live performance and then actually performing? How do you handle those challenges?
Okay. Well, beginning with choosing the songs, depending on the venue that I'll be performing in and the audience I'll be expecting. Trying to, and songs that I have charts to, readable charts for the musicians that hopefully they're familiar with, and they usually are. There's a great talent pool here in Chicago, musicians, so that's really not a problem. But choosing the material for me, I have a large repertoire and I love a lot of the songs. So making a decision is the one challenge of what songs I'm choosing to do.
Is the order important, how you program it?
It is, because I wanted to start out with something that'll grab your attention but does not beat you over the head, and kind of have a cross section of various rhythms and keep people interested. And usually there's not much of a dance set, although some people get up and dance, of course, but it's mostly a listening audience. So you want to keep people engaged, and that means to get the best songs I can for that particular audience, and kind of make it so that it reaches kind of a pinnacle, and then there's a bit of a denouement, and then after that have something that'll kick butt at the end of the set. And that's usually how I go about it. And the other challenge is that my nerves,
I think that's pretty common, to be honest.
Yeah, I think every singer.
What do you do to overcome your nerves?
Oh, hey, I just.
That didn't sound Italian to me.
I don't know what to make of that, but it just pops out all the time.
I love it, but it didn't sound Italian. That's quite okay. So what do you do with your nerves? How do you manage it?
I will just try and overcome it somehow. I'll be nervous, and I will be nervous, and I might say a little prayer beforehand and hope that I don't trip going up the stairs to the stage and that type of thing, and that my voice doesn't give out in a crucial point in the song. And then once I get up there and I'm singing, then it's all about the lyrics of the song, and it's all about interpreting the song and getting people to feel what the song has to say.
Do the nerves go away when you start to sing?
Yes, then they go away. Yes.
So
then once I get involved in the music, I'm not thinking of me anymore. I don't know how to get that across, but
that is, by the way, the perfect thing that actors seek, is to focus on the other performers and not on themselves. Mm-hmm. And so that's what you're talking about, is once you're into the music, it's no longer about you and your nerves. It's about singing the song.
Exactly.
And communicating with that audience.
Yes.
That's right in line with the way all great actors act and all great performers perform. is to
Oh,
take it off of you and put it on the other, whatever the other is.
exactly.
All
That's
right. So I ask this question of lots of guests and I get lots of interesting answers. What for you, in your taste and opinion, what for you makes a good song good?
well, a beautiful melody or a really cool melody. As I said, songs that intrigue me are unusual type melodies that are not 1 2 5 6 1 in chord progressions,
Right.
uh, or 1 2 6 5 1, whatever, however that went. Those I'm not making any sense of that, am I? Well, okay.
I think you're making sense.
Yeah, those are chord symbols that I may have wrong. However, that's the point I wanted to get across, that the melody has to be something that intrigues me. And usually it's something that's not only beautiful, but is interesting, and it's not stepwise. It's not linear. It's lyrics are very important. Maybe how the rhythm is, for instance, like Take Five is something I always love to sing.
Well, that's a really complicated song.
Well, yes, but somehow it's fun to say. I may be a glutton for punishment because it is difficult, but songs that appeal to me are that type.
It's songs that are not simple.
And yeah, that's right. Yeah, but they have to be beautiful too. For instance, like You Must Believe in Spring is a gorgeous melody, but yet it's not an easy song to sing. It's rangy, and there are leaps and there are intervals that are unexpected. But yet, between the melody and all of that and the lyrics, it's just a beautiful song.
It sounds to me like you like to surprise the audience.
You know, I actually don't think I want to surprise them. I just want to have fun. That's the main thing. I want to have fun.
You and Cyndi Lauper.
Yeah, right. Yeah. I want to have fun, and I want to take the audience with me if possible.
Well, that's a really good attitude to have, I think. So what then is your favorite thing about performing in front of a live audience? What is the big turn on?
Oh gosh, when I know the audience is with me and they're into what I'm doing, they're enjoying it, and we're interacting with each other, and my singing is good. I'm implementing my craft well, and they are reciprocating with that with saying yay and that type of thing, and
Well,
it's
obviously the applause is probably always good.
oh yeah, I was just going to say that applause is something that's appreciated, yes. And I never got any tomatoes or lettuce flung at me, so I'm grateful for that.
You're a step ahead of a few. So, all right. So you also record. Obviously, you recorded jingles, you've recorded albums, you've also done recordings. Do you prepare or think about recordings differently than live performance?
No, I
Same
do
thing.
not. Yes, it's the same thing. I just get a chance to do it over in recording, if I'm not, or if I get another thought, another way to approach it, well, I'll do another take. I hear this and let me try it this way, which you can't do when you're performing live, but in this recording studio, you can.
All right. So we've already talked about the fact that you actually actively feed off the audience. When you're recording, there's no audience to feed off of. So how does that impact your performance in a recording? Does it impact it in some way?
No, because I guess I'm my own audience there, and I'm my own worst critic. So I'm always going to be striving to do something better, And if I I like this, I think I'll keep this. Can I do another take, and maybe we'll put these two together? Then I'll be happy, So it doesn't really affect my singing in the same way.
And
Not having an audience.
Are you hearing what you're singing as you're singing it, or do you need to have it played back?
No, I hear it, and I hear what I don't like too while I'm singing it.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's the joy of recording, because if I hear something, I'm not crazy about what I did there. Kind of try it. I'm going to try it again, And so that's the joy. That's the good part of that.
All right. So you now have make a decision at some point. You're going to introduce a new piece into your repertoire, something that perhaps you've never sung before, or maybe somebody's written relatively recently. What do you do to prepare yourself with that song, aside from obviously listening to it and reading the music and so on? Do you do anything psychologically to prepare yourself for it?
You mean if I've never heard it before?
If you've never heard it before, or maybe you've heard it but you didn't ever think about it before, and you now want to introduce it into your act, into the gig, whatever. Do you have a special preparation for a new song? Do you approach it in a certain way?
No, I would approach it the same way I do songs that I love and songs that I'm not crazy about. I want to get into the song, find the elements that are appealing to me, and build on those feelings that are there. And hopefully, and then make it my own interp. That's it. That's the way I would approach it.
I see. So, all right. What kind of music do you listen to? What do you listen to get yourself into your own headspace on this? Same thing that you're singing, or do you listen to other things?
I listen to a potpourri of music. It's not just one kind. Of course, jazz is a great part of it. But I listen to, excuse me, I listen to opera, I listen to classical music, I listen to some rock tunes, and I listen to, of course, a lot of R&B, and all of that informs my, my approach to singing, all of it. And it's what I really, so it's not like I'll just listen to one type of music. I love basically all kinds of music, with maybe preference for a couple.
Right. So you'll listen to pretty much anything, but then you focus on a few.
Exactly. Yes.
And all right. So if what would you say are the biggest common mistakes that young singers make when they're trying to figure out who they are as an artist?
Well, it's not that I have a playbook here, because I may have enjoyed all of the singers that I've mentioned, but I still wanted to put my own stamp on a song. So in saying that, I think younger singers should be who they are and not comp anybody else's style or try to sound like anybody else. Even if you're not crazy about what you're doing, there's value in what you're doing. And that's what you should concentrate on, putting forth your interp in this, your voice in this, and doing it the best way you can. And some singers just, want to just jump on the bandwagon of what's a popular type of sound nowadays.
Yes.
And try to mimic that and make it their own. But that's not a good idea. I think it's better to be unique and to be yourself and put forth what you have to offer out there. Does that make sense, Steve?
Yes. I think some people are really good at that, and I think that some people, in all forms of art, in virtually all forms of art, they actually need to imitate somebody they admire early on in order to find their voice. And in your case, it's literally your voice, not just who you are and what you're about. As a writer, you try to find your voice, but it's on paper; it's not vocalized. And you, in your case, as singers, it's actually your voice. And I do think that sometimes it helps artists who can't figure out who they are early on to try to be someone else and then find their way.
Okay.
What I think what's important to note in what you said is that you don't want to wind up being an imitator of somebody else.
Exactly. Yes.
That's not helpful at all. You still need to figure out who you are.
Yes.
And I do think people at young ages frequently don't know who they are. They haven't lived enough life.
Very true. That's very true. You hit it right on the nail.
Well, I thank you for saying so. What new songs do you listen to? Do you listen
Me,
to new stuff like rock and roll or pop, or what artists do you think are doing great stuff today?
mm, let me think here.
That's a tough one. I
Oh,
mean, you,
it's not that there aren't any. I mean, there's probably scads and scads of
I
them.
mean, do you listen to
Oh,
folks like Taylor Swift and Katy Perry and those kinds of singers?
no, I don't.
What what do you do to refresh your well? What do you do? Is it just sitting back and listening?
That's part of it. Yes, that's part of it. I'll listen, yes, and uh, yeah, listening to new music. Although I don't do it enough, I'll admit to that. But it is helpful,
So
and I
how do you
should do it
recharge?
more.
How do you recharge your batteries then? What do you do? Do you what go? Do you go to a movie? Do you take a walk? Do you go to a museum?
Oh yes, I do a lot of walking, and love being in the water. I love that, so that makes me happy. It gets the adrenaline going and my whole body moving, and that feels good.
So that's what it is. You just work with your within your own spiritual
Oh,
nature, I guess.
I forgot, and being with my grandkids.
Ah,
Ah, those little munchkins charge me up for sure. That's
that
for sure.
that gets your engine revving, huh?
Oh my God, yes. Even if it doesn't want to run, they get it running because they're endless energy, and somehow they think I'm a playmate and they think I can do everything they do.
They won't let you fall back.
No, and that's the centerpiece lately of my
So,
life.
so do you think there's anything that you have not sung before an audience that you would be wonderful for your audience that you wish you were singing? Or have you done everything you wanted to do?
You know, no, I don't think I have done everything. I've done quite a few, yes,
I'm
quite a
sure.
yes, and there probably are some songs out there. None of the titles are in front of me right now that I would like to do. There was a song that Quincy Jones wrote many years ago that I always loved. It was an instrumental. It was called Quintessence.
Quintessence.
Uh-huh. And it was beautiful. It had all the elements of of jazz music that I love. And just recently, someone put lyrics to it. And when I heard the lyrics, I thought, yay, this is something I could do. There was another song that I had heard through another friend, but the song was a Duke Ellington song called Heaven,
Heaven.
which I really loved when I had heard. I had never heard it before, and I discovered it had lyrics, and I actually put that on my CD. So that is on my CD.
Oh, that's great. So you got to
Yeah,
fulfill that
I did.
desire, that dream.
Yes. Uh-huh.
That's a
Yes.
wonderful thing. All right. So in performance, you've obviously performed many times. Can you think of an instance in which there was something that happened that was not great or disastrous, and how you recovered from it? Either your microphones went out, or uh, your musicians screwed up and you had to start over. How do you recover from errors on stage?
Uh, well, you want to know what they were, what the instances
Sure,
were?
as long as you don't embarrass anybody, sure.
No, it's all, the only one that embarrasses me. There are a couple of instances. One instance was I sing with a group called the Lakeside Singers, a choral group of 25 professional singers, and we do 4 or 5 concerts a year. Well, this one time we were guests on a TV program, and we were all lined up on stage, and it was during Christmas time. There were wonderful poinsettia plants all around the stage, beautiful plants, big ones. That day, our conductor had requested that we wear a red touch of something red. And of course, I forgot my touch of red at home. When I got to the studio, I saw these plants. I decided, okay, this is what I could do. I took one of the blooms, and not having a bobby pin or anything with me, I put it in what they call to this day, everybody in the group, the vault, right? So it's stuck in here in the middle of here.
Right? The vault.
Yeah, the vault. That's what they said. Josie, you want to put this in the vault?
For the listeners, I'll be very delicate so they didn't see what I saw, which is Josie was indicating somewhere down in her chestal region.
Right, cleavage. Okay.
Cleavage.
So we were there for quite a bit of time under these hot lights, and the bloom kept wilting, and I kept going and getting another one and putting it in there. Finally, towards the end, someone on the stage crew said, "Hey, how much longer are we going to be doing this?" And one of the other crew members said, "I don't know, but we better hurry up because we're running out of plants." I was killing them all. And they never let me forget that to this day. They never let me forget that.
That's a very funny story. Well, I've been speaking with Josie Falbo here for almost 50 minutes. And so I'm going to wind this down with one last question for you today, Josie.
Okay, sure.
Do you have a solid piece of advice or a tip for those who may be starting out in the business, or maybe those who are in a little bit and trying to get to that next level?
Mm-hmm. Well, I guess it's something that they've heard before, but that does not make it any less important.
Of course.
And that is, don't give up. It's a hard business, and it's very unpredictable. And sometimes advancement is not based on talent, but on the whims of various people who have the wherewithal to advance you. And but don't let that stop you. Believe in yourself. Keep trying to improve your skills, and don't give up. And hopefully that's about all I can say. Hopefully that'll work.
I think that's not only wise advice, but it's critical advice. There's no such thing as a success made of someone who gave up.
Exactly.
You in order to succeed, you have to keep going. And sometimes that can be really difficult to do in a business, as you say, in which it's unpredictable and you can't guarantee anything. And you're at the whims and mercy of many different factors, from producers and the audience and your own physicality and all the different things that are unpredictable, as you say.
Yes. Very much so.
I think that's extremely wise. I went to school at UCLA for graduate school, and they used to say the only UCLA graduates who don't succeed are the ones who give up. So, and that's what it is. And yet, I think at the same time, if you're smart, you'll know when maybe you're not right for something.
Right.
And then you need to take a different tack. That doesn't mean continue to pound your head against the wall endlessly.
Right. No, absolutely not. No, exactly. You have to know when to fold them, You
know when to hold them and when to fold them. Kenny Rogers. But for sure, the idea of persistence is omnipotent.
Absolutely.
People only succeed by being persistent.
Right.
Well, Josie, this has just been a fantastic, fun, interesting, almost hour that we got here today. I'm listening to your career, and I wish you much continued success with whatever it is you're after over there, mostly in Chicago, I assume. And that people will get your albums.
Thank you, Steve. Appreciate it. Thank you.
And so we've come to the end of today's Story Beat. If you like this podcast, please take a moment to give us a rating or review on whatever app or platform you're listening to. Your support helps us bring more great StoryBeat episodes to you. Until next time, I'm Steve Cuden, and may all your stories be unforgettable.